how to build this argument. This argument is built from these problems, or from these solutions which are being given to people in our environment that we as business people see as something we can take advantage of in order to generate growth for the company. And that's what we do as business people, is we generate growth. Also is you cannot say that one product is going to work. It's like if you say people are liking less and less beef, therefore they're going to like more and more chicken. No, it's not always, you can never sure that one other product's going to be more successful because one is down. Is they may like less and less beef, and they're going to like something else than chicken. Suddenly it may be that they like less and less beef, and they're liking more and more something that you didn't expect, fish. And you are saying let's invest in chicken, and it's not chicken that they went for. So it's like less and less people like rock and roll, therefore more and more people are going to like um, uh, hip hop. And then you find that it's not hip hop they like more and more, it's country music and reggaeton. And then you go, wow, why? It should have been, I mean, it's either one and two. Why did they pick seven? So it's like one is rock and roll, two is hip hop. If they don't like rock and roll, they're going to go towards hip hop. No, they jumped. They went for something else. It's not mathematical the way people think. And so you have to think about the, the way people are shifting interests based on big ideas, which is like health. So if suddenly they like more and more health, they don't shift towards almond milk. So let's say people don't like milk as much anymore because they have lactose intolerance. Great. So they're going to go for almond milk. But then he says it doesn't work that way because people also care for the environment. And then they find that almond milk, and I'm making this up, causes a lot of issues with water and access to water and all of this. And then they end up taking more and more coconut milk. And so it's coconut milk, which you didn't really anticipate it, who benefited from the fact of lactose intolerance, and not the second largest substitute of milk. So you can't jump to conclusion. You have to look at the whole picture, and you can never be 100% sure, really. But you have to have more evidence to sort of be able to predict more what they may be doing. A lot of the things I'm talking about right now are connected to something important, which is consumer behavior. Um, we talked about all of these key factors last time, where essentially, like I just finished, it's hard to anticipate how people are going to think, but you can sort of try to interpret the most relevant data in order to make deduction, and that's all you can do. The factor that is the most important is the culture. And when you talk about consumer behavior, obviously you think about the concept of satisfaction. What is going to satisfy them? What is satisfying them right now? And what's going to satisfy them next? So you have multiple characteristics that explain consumer behavior, and culture is the number one. But subculture is also very important. Subculture is what nationality you may have, what religion you may have, what sub nationality you may have, what other language you may have, what hobby, like ingrained hobby, so a serious hobby, something you do very regularly, do you have. You can imagine someone that plays baseball versus someone that plays golf to be two different people, or someone that play drum versus someone who plays piano to be two different people. It's two different subculture, and your hobbies have an impact, a very deep impact on what you consume and how you spend your spare time. Your social class has an impact as well. Then you have social characteristics that impact people behavior, such as which group do you belong to? So your reference group is is usually connected to where you live, the people you hang out with. So the people that you aspire to be is also part of your reference group, because there's a reference group you belong and the reference group that you wish you belong or that you are transitioning to. So let's say you're a student, that's a reference group. Then let's say you are a CPA, aspirational CPA, that's a certified accountant reference group who you aspire to. You're an employee and maybe you aspire to become a business owner. So all of that will have an influence. Obviously, the family is, in many ways, within the concept of culture, is very important. It's connected and has the one of the biggest influence, but also the roles and status you have. So the roles, meaning maybe you have the role of being a mother, that's a role, or a father, or a daughter, and all that. Maybe you have a status, which is that you have some maybe you're a coach, you're a soccer coach or something like that. So being a coach, you have a certain status. That's going to influence on what you consume versus being just a student of soccer or being the assistant coach or something like that. Different behavior being the coach and being the assistant coach. Then there are personal characteristics such as how old you are, which generation you belong to, if you are married, if you are not married, if you have kids, if your kids are younger, older, in high school, in college, if you have grandkids and all this affects how you consume. But also, and that's very obvious, is if you have a job and if that job is providing an income and what kind of income, if you have savings, no savings, and then the lifestyle that you have. So the lifestyle things is maybe political. You know, you are Democrats, Republican, Independent, you're green, um, you what are the activities you like? So reading, listening to music, maybe you have a sports team that you favor and you follow. So that will be connected with your subculture. There's interconnection between all of this. Then there's the personality and self-concept. So you have a perception of yourself that you are very successful and you're very happy of yourself. You don't really have much feeling that you're successful, or you may have a third position, which is that you feel that you are not as successful as you should be. You may be depressed and have a low self-concept where you think that you're a loser, and that would have an impact thinking that you're the best versus thinking that you're a loser. So people vanity has an impact on what they consume, but also their personality. Maybe they like things to be made locally, maybe they prefer things to be made overseas, maybe they prefer things that were made by a company for a long time, maybe they prefer a new company, maybe they prefer to try things that nobody tried before, they try to try things that everybody tried. So your perception of risk is very important. Um, so personality has an impact, but it's not as big as anyone thinks. Motivation is um, is how much you perceive that you need this product. Perception is how much you see this product as being something more than it is or less than what it is. So it's like your value, your judgment of value. And then learning and beliefs and attitudes is essentially this idea that there's repetition, there's experience, there is memorization, there is beliefs and attitudes that people have and that will impact on how they consume. This goes into one of the components, which is this concept of motivation. So Maslow motivation theories is that there's 5 levels of motivation. From the simplest one and from the most required one. So you start at being physiologically satisfied. So you have needs. Those needs are not created, they exist for everyone, which is the need to eat and the need to sleep and the need to have water and shelter and sexual needs. Then you have the second order, which is this need for safety. So the idea here is that you need to feel that you are not being under threat, that you have some sort of stability and order. And then these two needs are the basic needs, physiological and security needs. Then the next two needs are interpersonal. So social needs and ego needs are interpersonal because they are very much dependent on others. So social needs is this idea is that you need to have friends, you need to be part of a group, you need to have an identity, you need to feel that that you you're not an outcast, you follow a group, you're not isolated, you're not alone, and essentially these people are like you. The next need, which is again interpersonal, and it's connected, but it's a higher level in the sense that it's called the esteem need, the ego need, where you will not only be part of a group, but you want to have some status in that group, in the sense that you want to be recognized as someone who has uh, some kind of command, some kind of respect that you seen as more prestigious. Okay, and then the last one, this time is not um, interpersonal, it's personal. So 1 and 2 is personal, but it's very much this physiological, um, like survival instinct type of need. The next two are interpersonal, so they're very dependent on others. And then the last one is personal. It's just you. So what others people think and do does not affect you. It's what you think. So it's like achievement. It's um, self-directed, self-fulfillment. It's personal enrichment. It's actualization and self-actualization. Is how do I feel about myself? So if you were to buy electric drill, for example, a power drill, is you would have the idea that the 1 and 2 will be that you bought this power drill because you want to fix something so that way you can eat. So let's say it's your fridge. With the power drill, is you building a shelf, you're doing something to keep food, and then you do it in a way that it's going to be safe. Social needs is that you're going to say, you know what, I'm married, I'm a good husband, I'm fixing things with my power drill. The ego needs is you would want people to know that you just don't have tools, but you have expensive tools, and that they are tools that are professional grade or something like this. And then the self-actualization is it's not so dependent on fulfilling a basic need, such as 1 and 2, and it doesn't matter what other people think, but what you think. So you may be doing something with that power drill that for most people would not be attractive, but you'd be happy to do it because it'd be giving you personal joy and personal satisfaction. Any question on Maslow hierarchy? The 5 levels. So it's not so complicated, and it's simple enough to put inside the quiz. And so in the quiz, I may have a question which just goes to the definition: is what is the need which has to do with people trying to feel that they are superior, and their product consumption allows them to feel better about themselves in their group. And that would be ego needs. Okay. So perception is this idea that we have senses and different senses when we are looking at something, and therefore there's biases in what we're looking and how much we remember from what we're looking with different level of attention. The different level of attention is based on our perception for this thing to be necessary or useful. The more we see it is useful, the more we pay attention to it. A little bit like if you're looking at the internet and you can't remember everything. So you only remember the things that are important to you, and maybe that's expressed by the fact that you bookmark it. Things that you bookmark, things that you save, are things that you perceive as being more important. The absolute threshold is the lowest level at which an individual can experience a sensation. So when you change, something, it's like you find that Califia Farms already has a powdered almond milk. The idea is if you were to make it better, how much better do you need to make it in order for people to see that it's better? So what is the absolute threshold, which is the minimum that you need to do, minimum amount of change that you need to do in order for people to see this is change, this is not the same. Do you change the color? Do you change the flavors? Do you change the quantity? Do you change the way it comes out, the way it tastes and all that? Sensory adaptation is the fact that after a while, people get used to something, even if they thought this was the best thing, eventually it's going to become familiar and they will become adapted. Therefore, you need to think about what is the absolute threshold for the next phase. The differential threshold, therefore, is what is the minimum between two stimuli? And so what is the minimum amount that you need to have in order to generate an interest, a motivation? So this is a very important concept, which I sort of was starting to talk about today earlier when I started the class, that I call this difference, this just noticeable difference. The J&D is what every business is trying to do. Every business could be classified based on the amount of J&D that it has. How much difference does it have? Sometimes, there's some big company, they have multiple brands and they're selling these multiple brands with the same product inside. And what they're trying to do is to cover more market. One could ask, what is the J&D? Well, what's inside? It's the same. The packaging is the same, but it's just the brand that is different. Are the price the same? Sometimes the price is the same, and sometimes the price is very different because they want people to think because of the difference of price, there's a different product. So the J&D is what you may call the cherry on that cake, that significant difference. It's this minimum change that you need to have in order to perceive that there's enough change for someone to want to buy. There's enough benefits. I remember there was a time where a Range Rover was selling one of their cars and they were saying, this is the new Range Rover. And people didn't buy it more than before. And in fact, they were just waiting to see, to feel the newness of the car. And if you look at the car, it looked very much the same as the one from the previous year. So what Range Rover did is they made a list of all the things that were changed, and there was like 800 things that were changed. So then they were saying, this is the new Range Rover. It may look the same, but we have changed 862 things to make it better. The fact that they said it was 862 things was giving a cue for people to say, you know what, at least the look was good, the look is the same, but it must be a better car because 862 things, that's a lot. But here, even the question is that enough? Should we say we change 200 things, 400 things, 600 things, 1,000 things? What is the right amount of the right number that we're going to say that's going to seem enough to be perceived as being enough change that I would want to buy this new product to replace the current product that I have? So here's a picture with the J&D. Obviously, the most famous pair of shoe is the one in the middle. It's the three stripes. The three stripes is like it's a trademark of Adidas for the design of their sports shoes. And here we see some other shoe that very much look the same, but they have either 2 stripes or 4 stripes. And this is not me that Photoshop, this shoe actually exists. And so what is the JND? It's the amount of stripes. What is the JND is the identity, the image, the reputation of the brand. But when it comes to design, what difference is it going to make in the shoe to have 1 stripes, 2, 3, 4, 5 stripes? It's still not using the stripes to be walking, but that may be enough as a fashion statement in order to be enough JND for people to want to buy the product. So they are, when people make a decision, they go through a process. And so this is called the buyer decision process. As you will see, there's the buyer decision process as a consumer buyer, and then there's the business buyer decision process. If you're a business, it's different than if you're buying for your personal consumption. It's different, but it starts the same way. In both cases, being a business or being a private owner, you recognize there is a need. The recognition that there is a need comes from the fact that you have a just noticeable difference. You've seen something that is different and possibly better. Depending on how much you see it as better, that will generate the motivation. So if you perceive there's a lot of difference, but it's not better, you're not going to want to go further. If you see there's difference, but not enough difference, therefore it won't be enough to get you to be motivated. The idea is need recognition is for people to recognize that they want to look for more information or maybe just buy the product straight away, depending on how much do they know about this product and how important is this product for them and how expensive is this product. So the more expensive the product, the more they go in information search. The less they know about the product, the more they go in information search. The more they need information because it's complicated, the more they go in information search. If it's all of this is sort of simple and inexpensive and they have a lot of experience, they may just jump into buying the product without going to information and evaluation of the different choices and straight go to buying. So once they search for information, they look at the pros and cons, and then they buy the product, and then they think about, they don't really think about it. Is they sort of memorize the fact that they don't want to buy this again, or they liked it so much that they want to go back again. Think about a movie with a certain actor. You like this movie with this actor, and now there's another movie with an actor. You have time. You like this actor. You go back to see the movie, and it's if you like the movie again, you like this actor, and keeps on going. If you go to a restaurant and you had a good dinner, you go back to this restaurant because you feel that it was good. If you see that the chef has opened another restaurant somewhere else, you may go and try it because you say, you know what, it's a different restaurant, but it's the same chef, so I'm going to try it again because I have positive post-purchase satisfaction, and therefore I will try again. Okay. Do you have any questions on JND or the buyer decision process? To finish the consumer behavior, there's this concept of adopter groups. So the adopter groups are interesting because first it tells you that there are several types of consumers and they come at different time. They tend to come at different time because there's a different level of interest. There's different personalities, meaning some people are more risk taking and some people are more risk averse. There's different need for innovation. Some people really look for the new things. There's different level of education and level of income. So the higher the level of education, the more people tend to buy when the product is just being launched. The higher the income, the more they tend to buy when it's launched. The opposite makes the inverse situation. So knowing these multiple groups is interesting, but you mostly want to know the first group, the innovator. The innovator are very important because they sort of set the pace for your product to be successful. So it's a little bit like thinking about a fire. When you start a fire, the quality of your fire is very dependent on the quality of what you started. Um, I remember I was,
Professor,
yes,
I have a question. So you were like talking about different categories of people,
yes.
and so my question will be like, who are those innovators then? Like, so and also my second question will be like, if basically you're trying to do something new, which target are you gonna attack first?
Okay, so that's exactly right. So your question is right on why is this important? Because when you launch a new product, you want to get you want to get successful and as soon as possible and with the right group to get started as possible for your product, new product being launched, not to be a burst, not to be short-lived. So you reminded me, I went to start a fire in a chimney, and I was putting paper, but the paper was not very dry. So it was sort of this humid paper. So because it was paper and I had a big match, the paper would eventually start burning, but it would never really set itself in fire to generate enough heat in order to start burning the wood, because the wood requires a large amount of heat in order to start, depending on the wood, but average wood. Because this paper was sort of humid, it would not get a very big flame. It would just consume, but not set the fire. And so you can, that's the same image with when you launch a new product, is you want a really strong buzz, they say, at the beginning. And the innovators, that's what they're going to do. So that's the importance of these people. But how do you find innovators? So innovators, because now of the use of new technology with the social media and the digital media, the beauty is everyone is able to build a fan base of followers that oftentimes that's where you get your innovators. The first group of people that would take your product and take pictures and share it with everybody else. But not only that, is there's a it's funny. I was driving this morning and I noticed right in front of me was a white Subaru. On my left was a white Subaru, and behind me was a white Subaru, the exact same model car, 100% the same. And this was only a two-lane, so therefore there could be nobody on my right. But I was surrounded of those white Subarus. And then I wondered, why are there so many Subarus? Well, there was probably something to do with the hour I was driving. At the hour I was driving, maybe this was the time where you had a specific group of people that was driving at that time. You don't notice the same car at the same time of the day. So this time of the day you drive, all the cars are like cheap cars. And there's hours of the day where you drive and suddenly there's more expensive cars because there's different group of people at different times. So there's different group of people that live in different places. If you live far from a Subaru dealership, they're not as common. There's less likely to have Subarus around you because people tend to buy cars from dealers that are conveniently located where they are. So there's many other reasons. There's many effects, but one of the effects may be that these cars are perceived as being better because they are different, and that difference may speak to a specific group of people that don't want the same car as everybody else. That so this group of innovator, unfortunately, they're small. So here it says 2.5% on this slide because that's the generic standard percentage that every adopter category um, is explaining, but you can't expect this number to be all the time. It may be 0.5%, depending on what you're selling. So all you know is it's by far the smallest percent of all of them, but you cannot expect to run a business by launching your product and launching it by bypassing the innovators. Some products are very lucky. They start with the innovator, but it's like a week, and then they go straight to the early adopters for 2 months, and then the early majority for 5 years, and it keeps on going like that. But some go through the innovators. I mean, that's what happened to the iPhone. The iPhone took something like 5 years, 4 or 5 years before it became successful. So it was not an overnight. So they had to cultivate the innovators of cell phone for several years before they totally embraced it. And when they fully embraced it, there were enough of them in order to create the snowball, like a snowball, like the spill over, the snowball that growing as you're pushing it to the next category, which is the early adopters. And then once you get to the early adopters, that's usually a good sign because now you have 15%. So you have some robust number that's going to roll to the early majority, late majority, and laggards.
I see. Just to make sure if I understand,
Yeah.
the way that you will cultivate those innovators is by trying to find an answer in their issues or their problems. And after like you've been like finding the solutions, they will be like around you, and then this curiosity will become bigger, I guess, and then the other group will come along with.
Well, what happened is you have to think more of a disease.
Oh,
So think about a virus, which now we're all very familiar with. Um, the, the the best way to give a disease is to either a group of people that meet a lot of other people. So it's like here, let's give a disease to someone that doesn't wash their hands too much and meets a lot of people. That's perfect. We're not going to, let's say we want to give a virus. We are like a virus and we're smart. We are marketing virus. We don't want to start with someone that washes their hands every 5 minutes because we're not going to have the disease roll. So we're going to look and say, look at the community. Someone that touch a lot of people, see a lot of people. Like, I think, um, so what that would be.
Facebook, I guess.
No, someone that touch a lot of people. So I would say first, probably a younger person, because a younger person goes out. A younger person wakes up, goes to the gym. So at the gym, they can leave a lot of viruses everywhere. After that, they go to the university, so they're going to see another thousands of people. After that, what can they do? So I don't know if you understand my concept. Is you
Yes, it
would
is.
want to get the most out of the list. So you will want to find these people really. Like giving the disease to someone who doesn't like to go out, that is older, and that's not going to transmit it. It
Yes,
doesn't help you.
makes sense.
So
Yeah.
the innovators are not who you're looking for to solve the problem. Because if you do this, therefore you're going to have a business that is micro niche. You're
Hmm.
going to do a business that helps the experts. So what you do is you find a solution that helps a lot of people, but you let that solution be known just by the innovators to start. So they are the first one to embrace it because they go, yes, finally, you know, a cell phone I can take pictures with. And, and so it's better. Before the cell phone, you can't take a picture. You can only call someone. And so they now are using this product, but they are someone that voice a lot, like an influencer. So they will tell a lot of people, oh, did you see my cell phone? What is it? It takes pictures. And they will say that to thousands of people. A lot of people will find out about them. So they will diffuse this news much faster. And they will be like a conduit, like a channel fast to go to the early adopters, which would be the next group that would say, I need that. I think I need that. I definitely am. I deserve it. I have to have it. And then it diffuse to a point, where it's eventually there's enough competitors, and there's enough competitors that want to get their market share that they create the next just noticeable difference out of the innovation that was innovation years ago. And then they keep improving. So everyone run for the innovator. everybody court the innovator. Everybody wants to be the best friend with the innovator because the innovator is the spark of the process.